What's going on, guilty guys and gals? Welcome to another tier list video. That's right, we're back. But this time it's Danganronpa, so I'm sure it'll get more views. Today I'm ranking Danganronpa executions because I wanted to rank cases, but the problem with cases is like, there's too much that goes into them for me to just rank the case. If I was to rank the case, I'd have to rank the whole chapter, and I would have to go back and replay the whole chapter again, just so that I didn't miss anything. And it also involves like character moments a lot more than, say, an execution does. Executions are mostly just spectacle. This list has literally every execution in the games, including the ones from Danganronpa, another episode. So that's good. I won't miss anything, at least. But I'm not ranking anime ones for two reasons. One, they're not on this tier list. Two, I haven't seen it. So, you know, that's only fair. Plus, I don't think there even are executions in the anime. They just die. Aside from maybe Chiaki. But let's... Okay. So we're starting with the first execution in the entire series. The execution of Jin Kirigiri. I'm going to put it in B. You know what? I'm moving it down to C. I put B as fitting, so I kind of have to move it to C for okay. Because the execution really doesn't have anything to do with Jin as a person. Like, I don't know, he goes in a rocket and flies to space and gets vaporized. It doesn't really, like, relate to him at all. It has, like, the headmaster. And they kind of had to do that because you're not supposed to know who it is at that point. But at the same time, it makes it a lot weaker. I don't know. It sets the tone for the games as, like, kind of surreal and silly, but also kind of gruesome and serious at the same time. But not much more than that. The first execution of Leon Kuwata is actually... I'm going to put it in fitting. I think it's one of the strongest in Danganronpa 1. Because not only is it related to his talent, but Leon's whole character thing was he didn't like baseball. So the fact that he's getting killed by baseballs is kind of, you know, ironic. And it also has the most, like, that end scene where it zooms out and you just see, like, his body suspended there and everybody, like, circled around watching. It has the most eerie feeling of any of them either. It really makes it, like, it really sells the idea that, like, somebody died right here. Even more than, like, seeing Sayaka's body or whatever. Like, it really makes you feel like, we just watched somebody die. Like, for real. Like, oh, geez. So I think that's fair. I might move it up to A later. We will see. Next is Mondo Butter. Now, this is actually one of the... It's based on a Japanese folktale of tigers that jump over a bush or something. I honestly don't remember it, which is really annoying because I'm going to bring up this for another one later and how I like it so much. So I'm just going to pause for a sec and read up on that. Hold on. Okay, turns out it really wasn't that important. So the story is basically, I thought it was a Japanese folktale, but apparently not. At least I don't think so, given the name of the person who wrote it is like Helen. But it's a story about a boy who gets tigers to run around a bush so fast that they vaporize essentially into butter, which he then uses to feed his family. Which makes sense for the fact that it's a motorcycle cage, but it doesn't really relate to Mondo's character at all. Like, there's a pretty strong resonant chord in Mondo's character of regret about killing someone. And the idea of, like, speed gets really close to the motorcycle race, so it's, like, almost there, but they didn't take the last step. It's just butter. I guess somebody had the idea that, I don't know, the motorcycle cage goes around real fast and then butter. And it'd be funny and it would be off-putting for people. Which, you know what? It is kind of off-putting. But honestly, I feel nothing. I feel nothing with this one. The next one is Celeste's. This one's a bit complicated. So a lot of people, when they look at this, are like, why the hell did the fire truck burst out of the wall? Like, what? That's a weird way to end that. Like, if it ended with her just burning to death, well, suffocating to death and then burning, it would be sort of like Leon's, where it would kind of feel like haunting. But instead, like, a fire truck crashed through the wall, and it's kind of goofy, and the freaking Monokuma firefighter is there. The reasoning behind it, as far as I can understand, is that Celeste wanted a extravagant death. And burning at the stake, I suppose, is more extravagant, certainly, than many forms of death. However, the truck comes in and hits her and kills her on impact, which is like the most common cause of death is car accidents. So that kind of makes sense. I just feel like it would have been better explained if it wasn't a fire truck. Like, to have, like, the fire... I just don't think a witch trial is really the best choice when it comes to, like, a dignified, like, extravagant death. Right? Like, when you think about, like, the death of royalty, it would be, like, poison or the guillotine or something like that. But like burning at the stake, that was for people who they thought were crazy. Right? Even though they were totally wrong. I don't know. So I feel like it's just okay. The idea of the car accident actually taking her life being the last moment of despair makes good sense, and saves it from I feel nothing tier, but it's not crazy, you know? This is the first awful one. Alter Ego's execution, what is it called? Excavator Destroyer or something like that? Where friggin' an excavator just comes out of the background and hits the laptop a lot, and then it turns into a smooth ball. What? It's a computer. It's a computer AI. There could have been a whole thing inside the computer, and that could have got super creative, but instead they just bring in an excavator and hit it a little bit. What? I would have loved to see something like, I can't remember what it's called, but there's a game you can load up that will literally destroy every file on your computer and blue screen it, and you'll never be able to like open it again without reinstalling Windows. I can't remember what that game is called, but it's basically like Space Invaders where you're destroying your files. I would have loved to see something like that. And it would have been thematic when, you know, we came to Danganronpa 2. But yeah, it's alright. Next is Kyoko's execution in the bad ending of Danganronpa 1. You know what? How does that fit with Kyoko as the ultimate detective? I know why it doesn't fit. It's because the execution's actually for Makoto. So it makes absolutely no sense for Kyoko because, you know, they just tacked it on at the end. But as the ultimate detective, there could have been crazy amounts of ideas for an execution there. But instead all we got was smooshy thing and blackboard. I don't know. It's just a waste, I think. If you wanted to like incentivize people to replay the game again to get the bad ending, then, you know, you'd have to actually give there to be a point. As it stands, it's literally just a waste of time. So, you know. Next is Makoto's. I'm going to put this in okay. The actual method of death doesn't make any sense to me. Because he's the ultimate lucky student. And it feels like they leaned way more into student than lucky. Like, if it was like a pachinko machine or something, you know? Or like some sort of game of luck that Makoto would end up losing, or that like winning would be the cause of his death, that would make way more sense. But no, it's just big smoosher. So it doesn't really fit. I get that it's called after school lesson, but he's more of his talent is luck. It's not being a student. Even if it was like the ultimate average execution, and at that point just bring the car back from Celeste and hit him with it, right? Like, come on. Junko's like ultimate despair execution, it's okay. I like the concept of combining all the previous executions, even if it makes absolutely no sense she could survive any of them. Because it's like a heightened reality moment, you know? And the smoosh is quite satisfying at the end of this one. But again, I feel like Junko, the character that Junko is, she would have planned an execution for herself, right? Like, if she was so willing to play the final trial to do this, she had to have thought at some point, how would I want to die in an execution? And, like, I don't know. I just feel like mashing up all the previous executions is kind of lazy. Even though it's kind of it's a neat throwback to all the pain and suffering she inflicted on your friends. It also just doesn't really stand out that much, you know? But from here on out, the executions get a bit more substantial. Like, they got a little bit more thought put behind them. So let's start with Teruteru Hanamura's. I guess I'll put it in fitting. It's kind of along with Celeste's in the idea that is the opposite of what they stand for. Celeste, obviously, she stands for, like, a grand exit. Teruteru stands for fine dining. And so, of course, he is instead cooked into a... what's it called? Tempura. I remember. He's just fried up, like fried food, like low-class fried food, you know? And I guess that makes sense. I just wish the method of doing so was a bit less nonsensical. Like, literally shooting a missile at him? Come on, dude. You could do something like Korekiyo's, where you just drop him through a bunch of floors filled with the stuff and then pick him up with the helicopter. That would be fine. The missiles just really take me out of it for this one. Stops it from being anything more. On the other hand, we have Pekko's execution. Pekko's execution. There's a lot to be said about it. The idea that this is the only execution in the entire series someone has tried to interfere with is quite crazy when you think about it. It kind of breaks the immersion I have with these other executions. Like, you're really telling me no one went in to try to save Kaido? Or, like, nobody went in to try to save Gonta? Like, really? Fuyuhiko doesn't face punishment for doing so either. So you'd think the people in this later game would have, like, maybe tried to save Gundam or something. But at that point, the executions get so nonsensical in terms of where they're occurring that maybe it just didn't make sense. I do like the idea that Pekko is basically put into a battle of attrition, where she is totally capable of beating all of these robots. It's just the fact that they're all coming at her at once. And she's actually doing really well. What would have probably pushed this over the top for me is if, like, we saw Monokuma getting visibly worried. Like, she was beating all of them, and he's just like, this wasn't supposed to happen. And then Fuyuhiko unwittingly is her end. Right? And Monokuma just, like, smiles and laughs. That, I think, would have probably pushed it over to S tier for me, but as it stands, it's an A tier. The idea that she basically gave up her life for Fuyuhiko makes a lot of sense, and the idea that she could beat all of them single-handedly is also kind of amazing. Next is, I don't know why, I got Sumiki stuck in my head. Mikon. That's an F tier one. She gets on a arm and flies into space. That's it. We don't see her die. It barely has anything to do with nursing. The only nursing thing involved is, like, a needle. Like, there's way better options once again for this. Like, you could have had it be related to, like, diseases or something. Like, to have her, like, slowly go through contracting diseases. It'd be pretty horrifying, really. And given what happens in the later games, it probably wouldn't be too out of place. You could have... The other thing is she's, like, got an affinity for needles. So even just, like, a bed of needles or something like that. Or, like, needles that work in reverse. Like, sucking out her blood. You know? There's, like, a lot of crazy ideas that would be, you know, a little bit more impactful than she flies off into space and that's it. Like... The fact that we don't even get to see Mikon's like moment of death, quote unquote, it really robs this of having any like potential. Like, she just goes into space and is just like, oh, well, I guess that's it then. Okay, sure. Yeah. Next is Gundams. It's okay. The idea of a stampede makes sense, but the fact that he just teleports to a random plane in the middle of nowhere bugs me a little bit. It breaks my immersion, you know? I'm like, wait a second. How did he get here? And I know the explanation people would give is probably, well, it was all a computer program. But why doesn't anybody question it then? They question when the world starts falling apart later, so like, why don't they question it now? I don't know. As like what else they could have done, I have no clue. So Stampede makes the most sense. But the other thing is like he draws a magic circle in the ground. I don't know, man. I feel like maybe like having him like in a cage with a lion, like a gladiator battle, might make more sense. Because it would also go along with his philosophy, right? The strong will survive. The strong must survive. Or it's better to be killed than... Or it's better to kill than to be killed for no reason. I don't know. It feels like it has nothing to do with Gundam, other than the fact that he's an animal trainer. And even that, these are wild animals, so it doesn't really even have that much to do with it being an animal trainer. Yeah, I don't know. Next is Chiaki's. I'm going to put it in B. Fitting is probably the best word for it. Seeing the Monomies get eliminated one by one actually kind of helps this out. But really, it's just she runs down a long corridor and then gets smooshed. So it's not that much different from like Makoto's or Kyoko. The Tetris theming makes it a little bit better. But yeah, I don't know. I feel like this could have been, again, more video games focused. Like, these executions, on the most part, are themed to these people's talents. So, like, why is it that sometimes they just go off the wall and then throw in the talent at the end? Like, what was the point of making Chiaki run down a long hallway? Like, now it's a reference to the anime, but before that, there was... it wasn't a reference. It was the original concept. I don't know. It feels less despair-inducing to have her run down a hallway than just to have her be trapped and have to accept her fate, right? I don't know. I just don't. It doesn't really work that well for me, rather. But it is better than some of these other ones, to be fair. Next is AI Junko. I feel nothing. Monomi appears out of nowhere after having died, and then explodes Junko with ribbons from a side mode in Danganronpa 2. There's not really much to say about it. It's just okay. Okay, it happened. Now we're getting into the good stuff. Kaede's execution is extremely well thought out. The hanging part, it's not that connected with her thing, but it is a good way to tie in like a method of execution with her talent, being that Monokuma is literally playing the piano with her. It's good and thematic. It's also drawn out enough to where you really feel like bad, and the final like thing when the piano lid closes on her and goes. It's just like the icing on top of like, oh, why? You know? Plus there's like that zoom out moment where she's just kind of hanging in the background, and that's kind of the same vibe as Leon's in the end. It makes you feel like, oh shit, things just got real. You know? The next one's going up here too. Kurumi's execution. It's very thematic. So it's called like the Spider's Thread, something like that. And it's a reference to a folktale from somewhere. I'm not going to say Japanese just this time, just in case I'm wrong. But it's a tale of a person who gets sent to hell. However, he gets one chance at redemption due to the fact that in his life of debauchery, he chose to spare a spider when he could have squished it easily. And so the thread is like slowly spooled down into hell like a spider's thread, and he starts to climb up it. However, his undoing is that everyone else starts to climb up it as well. And in his haste to try to get them off the rope, as soon as he has that selfish act of trying to get out on his own, the web snaps and he's trapped in hell again forever. And for Kurumi, this makes a ton of sense because she was willing to sacrifice everyone in order to escape, just because she felt she was more important. And while the people in the trial might agree with her, that's kind of a terrible way to think, right? Like, sure, she ran the country, but this is also the country that during the time she was running became not only like apocalyptic, but had like the rise of despair and like, you know, it's not like she was a prolific leader that like would save the world like they try to like insinuate. Like, if your local politician said that they would let you die in order for them to escape and continue to do politics, no. So the selfish angle actually really elevates this one for me. It goes along with the concept pretty well. Plus, it's gruesome, you know? And I feel like that's kind of important with these, because if it's not, then you don't feel anything. So yeah. Next is Korekiyo's. This one's unique. I will give it that. So I will put it in fitting. The idea of being like boiled alive is not only horrifying, but fitting, I suppose, for Korekiyo. The part that actually pushes it over the top for me is the ghost segment, even though it makes no damn sense whatsoever. It really ties into his like obsession with the paranormal. And the fact that he is obsessed with the paranormal is because his sister died and he wants to convene with her and all of that. So it makes it's really fitting, one might say. Next is Gonta's. This one's okay. Well, I'll put it in fitting. Bugs get him. Okay, sure. There's a big bug. It stabs him. Yeah, I guess. I think would have made it make more sense is if it was like insecticide instead of bugs, because he likes bugs. So the thing that he hates would be the stuff that kills bugs, right? I don't know. It's kind of lame to just see like his cheeks get all puffy as he gets stung by bees. Like, yeah, okay, sure. It could have been better, but it is fitting, so I'll rank it there. You know what? No, I ranked Gundams down here, so Gontas can go here too. And Celeste. Yeah, they're all on the same level for me. Could have been better, but they're okay. Next is Kaido's. This can go into deep and emotional tier. The thing that pushes this one over the others for me is the fact that he makes the execution fail by dying before it can finish. The fact that he gets the last stab against Monokuma even in death. It's a very good turn. It's a very good unexpected turn, I should say. And I also like that it's an homage to the first execution in the series, because this time it makes a hell of a lot more sense. Oh, the astronaut's in a rocket that's going to space and is going to vaporize him. Okay, that makes way more sense than a dude who runs a school. Even though it is a very fancy school, like, still. Yeah, I like that one. Tsumugi. I don't know if this even counts. She just gets smushed by a rock. What a send-off. It really epitomizes her character, I think, where it feels like they just did not think about what they wanted to do with her. They were like, oh yeah, we'll have Tsumugi be the mastermind, and it'll be a turn in the final case. They'll be able to figure it out. It'll be like an aha moment. It'll be pretty good. So what are we going to do with her? I don't know. Just make it a rock. And I know it's supposed to be an homage to Junko getting crushed, but at the same time, that one wasn't good either. Like, come on, people. At least have her like be like, it could have been kind of cool to have her go into like the monitor room and watch, have her be watching the viewers like leave the, I'm trying to say stream, but that's not the right answer. Leave, like, seeing the ratings plummet as the school is destroyed, and having it sort of tie in with Kibo's explosion, having him like fly into the building, and the final thing you see is her just, you know, maybe sheds a tear at the loss of her baby, which is this show, and then in a moment both of them are instantly vaporized. Which, speaking of which, Kibo's here. That's not even an execution either. He just explodes. Like, come on, man. He didn't have to explode. He literally had it on lock. He was blowing up things all over the place. The fact that he explodes is more of a contradiction, if anything. Like, I don't know. Kibo should have not died. There was no purpose for him to die. Why did he do that? It's weird. It's weird and wrong. Now we're into another episode. And let me just preface this by saying there's only one execution in this game in which someone dies. Thanks, anime. Thanks for kind of ruining this. The first execution is Komaru goes up in a helicopter and then falls out and doesn't die. No. Why? A, it's got nothing to do with who she is as a person. And B, she doesn't even die. Like, these one, at least the rest of them, they pretend they died. But this one, no. Not even that. Nothing. Yuta Asahina. He swim and then he blow up. I feel nothing. I mean, I felt sad that he died, because he's literally the only one who dies. In an execution, I should say. Chihiro's dad... Wait, does Chihiro's dad make it out? I think he does. I think he recovers from his wounds and escapes. I don't remember what his name is. Mr. Fujisaki. But, the fact that Yuta is the only one who canonically dies in this game in an execution is so annoying. It just... What's even the point then? Right? Like, I don't know. I don't know if I even count these as executions, but they were on the list, so I thought I'd rank them. Friggin' Masaru gets dragged down by kids. I feel nothing. Friggin'... What's even his name? Jotaro gets dragged down by kids. Nothing. Kotoko gets grabbed. Nothing. She comes back like 30 minutes later. Nagisa gets smooshed. Well, he survives it. We know that thanks to the anime. I guess it's okay. No, I feel nothing. It's not thematically related to him at all. He's a history major and he just gets smooshed by a column or a robot. I can't remember which one it is. It's one of the two. Nothing. And I don't even know what this is referring to. I gotta be honest. Like, what even is this? I don't even know. So I'm just going to put it in nothing. Somebody tell me which one that one is, because I watched the ending to another episode. I didn't actually play it, so I don't actually remember that one. That's how much I just didn't enjoy that game. Komaru is fine, and, you know, I kind of like the idea with Kotoko and Toko. The rest of them could care less about. But yeah, that is my list. Shockingly, V3 has made it to the top of the list the most, and that's probably just because it had way more budget, it seems. And it went way more, they did way more research into their executions in V3. That said, most of the lowest executions, other than another episode, which kind of makes sense, averaging it out, it looks like the Danganronpa 2 executions are mostly okay. The Danganronpa 1 executions are mostly in... I feel nothing, probably, if I averaged it out. Or okay. So yeah, I don't know. Executions in Danganronpa are a tricky thing. Some of them are very good, and some of them are just not. Thank you all so much for watching. I'm sure you disagree with me. If you do, maybe you'll leave a comment. I bet you will. I bet you already have. But if you want to support me, you can always click like and subscribe. I got more stuff like this coming, so, you know, think about it. Okay, bye.